Good afternoon to all of you. Today we will learn about project identification. That we have to identify that which project is beneficial for us for investment our capital. As we know that project cycle starts from growth to decay, growth, maturity and decay. So project growth cycle begins with the identification of the project ideas that appears to represent a high priority use of a country's resources to achieve important development objectives. So, how our cycle of the project starts with identification. We have to identify the project ideas. When we identify the project ideas, that which project is good, that represents a high priority use of country's resources. Why? Because you are using country's resources. What's your objective? Objective is the development. Objective is to develop the society, develop the economy of the country. So project identification or preliminary screening of project. And it is critical part of our process. So the decision made at this stage, either default or explicit, have a far-reaching impact on the final outcome of the project. So the decision at this stage is very important because its impact you find at the final outcome of the project. If your project ideas is not good due to lack of knowledge or whatsoever, then your project will not be completed on time. And then at that moment of time there is time overrun or cost overrun. Because the cost of the project will increase, the time span will increase, then you are at default. You cannot submit your project at right time. So it is particularly important at the outset to consider as wide range of alternative approaches as feasible. So you have to consider a wide range of alternative approaches. Then only you have to analyze and evaluate that which idea, which project is feasible, viable for you. All these project ideas are put forward and accepted without adequately weighing alternative and possibly cheaper or more means to achieve the same objective. Because objective is same. Whether you are accepting the cheaper project, the project which needs lesser money or large amount of money, without adequately weighing, but the objective of both the project are same. Whether effective, the result of vested interests, the political pressures, or simply lack of information about viable options, the consequences are same. So if your vested interests are not effective, maybe because of political pressures or because lack of information about viable options, consequences are same. Opportunities lost at this stage can seldomly be recaptured. There is no substitute of being right in the first class. So, explicit attention should be paid. Defining a project's ideas at the earlier stage and to ensure that all the parties concerned, including external lending agencies, agree on these objectives and on the strategy for achieving the same objective. So the attention should be paid. If you are not paying attention on these factors, then the project may be fatal. The intended beneficiaries of the project must be consulted when their participation in designing and implementing the project is important to its ultimate success. So if you want to make your project success, then you have to have the idea that whether you have consulted the intended beneficiaries of the project when their participation in designing and implementation of the project are properly overviewed or not. So failures to reach an understanding about objectives and to secure a firm's commitment from all those concerned has often generated frictions later and result in poor implementation. So if you fail to understand the objectives and you fail to secure a firm's commitment from all those concerns, so that will generate frictions in a later stage, and that will result in poor implementation of the project. So you have to take it into considerations, the all beneficiaries of the project properly. A poor implementation of the project failed to reach an understanding about objectives and to secure a firm's commitment from all those concerned has often generated frictions. A project can be treated to have passed the identification stage because each and every project has to pass the identification stage. And as you know well, that you will pass the identification stage when your project ideas are good. So, how you think that your project has passed through the identification stage? For this you have to keep it into consideration certain points. That major options and alternatives have been identified. So you have to find the options and alternatives. And you have to identify that what options and alternatives you have. And some initial choices made. You have to make an initial choice. Number 2. The principal policy also you have to keep it in your consideration. Because the principal policy issues affecting project outcome. So what sort of policies you have decided to complete the project? That issues will affect the project outcome. So the principal policies, issues affecting outcome have been identified and appears to be amenable to solution. So whatever the policies you are thinking to issue, which affect the project outcome, that should be identified and that should appears to be amenable to the solution. Project options selected are likely to be justified given rough estimate of the expected costs and benefits. So the options which you want to select should be justified. Within the given rough estimates of the expected costs and benefits. It appears that project will have adequate support both from the political authorities and from the intended beneficiaries, because you have to see the face of the intended beneficiaries as well as the political authorities also. Without this, you cannot complete your project on time. the prospects are reasonable that adequate funding will be available from local and, if needed, external sources. So, from where the fundings you will get? From the local or from external sources? So that also you have to think for. So a specified plan for preparation of the project has been established. So these are the points which one should keep it into consideration while identifying the project. Because your project cycle begins with identification of project ideas. So if you are not capable enough to identify the project ideas, it means your project cycle is not proper, and then you don't think that your project will complete on time and complete within the estimated cost, and you will get the benefit properly. Okay? So thank you very much for this project identification. Next we'll discuss the project formulation. Thank you.